Om Namo Narayanaaya. Om Namo Narayanaaya. Dear devotees of Chicago Kalibari, today is Sunday, so we have a little delayed the 4:30 program the on lunar eclipse. Sriram Ramanujam will be explaining to us about the lunar eclipse today. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Jai Shriman Narayana. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I wanted to kind of cover as part of the series. So, as part of the series where we are talking about our Panchangam and how the Indian calendar, the Vedic calendar, and how it works in terms of the significance. We're going to cover lunar eclipse. 26th of this month is total lunar eclipse for us. It is visible in some parts of the world. We'll try to explain why and how. And also we want to cover why there are some rituals associated with Grahanam. When there is Grahanam, we always have some rituals, and we'll try to cover why and what reasons our ancestors and the Vedic philosophy, recommends doing certain things for us. As you all know, light source is of primary importance to us. Agni, right? In any form, Vayu, and water, right? Air and water. They're three important things for any living thing to be doing its job. Among them, light is the most important one. Long before Einstein, right? In the theory of relativity, he said matter can never be created or destroyed. We all knew about it in the sense that the Vedic philosophy knows about it. Light is the source that transforms anything from one matter form to another, and light is what carries things to be in a different source too. So given that the sun and the moon play an important role, they give out light, right? They give out light. In the daytime it's sun, and in the nighttime it's moon. The moon's light can never be underestimated. Never underestimate the light that moon provides. The dhanyam, right? Every tree, every grain that grows is supposed to take in a lot of the light from moon. The moon's light is what is supposed to really make things grow more so than the sun. The sun's things are important for its the cyclical things and what it does, but for growth it's supposed to be the moonlight that makes it grow as much as it does. So moonlight is also of primary importance for us. So light being the so important source for us in terms of every karma that we do, everything that we start off from the time that we are born, we do all kinds of havans, to all kinds of homams till the time that we are consumed by the same flames, right? So the light sources are so important that anything that happens to them, right, we take cognizance, we take a recognition. We want to be very faithful to the two sources, be respectful to the two sources, and hence we do certain things when they are disrupted. And the disruption also happens because of the history behind why Rahu and Ketu are where they are in terms of providing this thing. Of course, it's a astronomical phenomena, but like I said, everything in our Vedic culture is guided by a devata. Anything, any point in space also is guided by a devata. Now we'll look at our chart here that we have always been showing over the past so many weeks. The positioning, if you look at it, the way we are positioned in Uttarayanam. When you say Uttarayanam is where we are today, look at where we are. If you look at this plane of Dakshinayana Uttarayanam, this is the plane. This is the plane that we are in, and we are in the north side of it, right? And the north side of it, the Earth is right there. If you imagine where we are, this is the Uttarayanam, and we are in a couple of days. We are going to be in Vishaka Nakshatra. So on Tuesday, we will, on the full moon day, we are going to have Vishaka Nakshatram. Hence, the month is called Vaikashi, right? Or Vaikasi that we had earlier. Or Vrishabha is the spy. The name of the spy that we are in, the name of the spy that we are in is Vrishabha, as shown by the earth, the sun. The sun shows us Vrishabha. That's the reason why the solar calendar will say it's Vrishabha Masam. But as per the lunar calendar, we are going to call it Vishaka Nakshatram because the full moon is going to be pointing to the star. Now, how does eclipses happen, right? I know many people must have, almost everybody must have studied this in your school. Eclipses are a very unique thing that happens. It happens because of various, not various reasons, but one important reason. Now we want to show a little bit of with just things that you have at home that you can imagine. This tennis ball right here is the sun. The sun doesn't really, it's also rotating, it's also revolving, but it's at a different pace. But primarily when we talk about the sun and the moon, we have the earth that is also revolving and rotating right around the sun. Now we have moon here, which I'm going to represent with this marble, that is also rotating and revolving around the sun. Most of the times what happens is the moon is like that, right? The plane of how the moon is rotating and revolving is like that, right? It goes around, and it, of course, it's rotating and also revolving. The plane differs. The plane at which the moon revolves and rotates around the sun can go around the earth, can really change. It goes up like that, comes down like this, and does all that in terms of how the gravitational forces work in how where the earth is positioned. But imagine when what happens in the plane is on the same level as the earth, right? Today, tomorrow, on Tuesday, what we're going to see is this moon is in the same planar level as the sun and the moon, the sun and the earth. Sorry, I keep repeating that. Now you have this moon that is going around like this. It's almost in the same plane as the earth and the sun. Now on a full moon day, it's going to come down like this, and it's going to be in this position. It's in the same plane as the sun and the moon, and hence on the full moon day, it's going to be the earth is going to cast a shadow on the moon, and hence the moon that's supposed to look yellow, bright, great, right? It's going to be shadowed by this earth's it's going to go dark just because of the earth's shadow. And of course, because it's moving, right? It's moving. Just when it gets into this position, like for like 15 minutes or so, that's how long the full total lunar eclipse will stay. It's going to be dark, and after the 14-15 minutes, it's going to move away like that, and then you start seeing the sun's lighting up the moon again, and you're going to see it because the earth is also moving. The sun's going to move, the moon's going to move, and hence you're going to start seeing it. So that's how the lunar eclipse happens. And depending on, you're going to be facing this way, right? India and other places are going to be facing the sun when the lunar eclipse happens. When the lunar eclipse happens tomorrow, like on Tuesday, more, even the eastern part of the United States, for example, is going to miss out on uh, the full visibility of this eclipse. The central, the mountain time zones, and the Pacific time zones are going to be able to see parts of the partial and the total lunar eclipse taking place. We'll come to why when that happens, what we do. So, for example, people in India, it's a non-event. Most of the places they don't. Europe, for example, is not even going to care. India is not going to care about this eclipse because they need to be able to see the moon cast the sun cast a shadow, which it doesn't. So they're going to pass it on as it is. The other thing to know is anytime we have a lunar eclipse, in about a couple weeks, we will have a solar eclipse. A lunar eclipse does not come all by itself, or a solar eclipse cannot come all by itself, because this moon is in the same plane, right? It's in the same plane as the Earth and the Sun. Hence, as it moves in a couple weeks and comes down here, we're going to have a solar eclipse. I think June 10th or so is when the solar eclipse is going to take place. But again, this solar eclipse is not going to be visible in the United States, I believe. In the southern hemisphere is how when it's going to be visible, because it's in a certain plane that it's a lot of it is not very visible in the northern hemisphere this time. Hence, that solar eclipse is going to take place in a couple weeks. We're probably going to miss it, but somewhere in the world, people will see it. One might ask, right? The moon is so small. How does that even block the entire sun from being seen? Right? The sun is supposed to be so big. It's thousands and millions of times bigger than the Earth. Even though this ball here doesn't give a good representation, it's much bigger. If you imagine, the reason for that is, if you imagine this to be one, the size of this moon to be one, and the distance between the Earth and the moon to be one, right? The sun is 5 times bigger and the 5 times farther away from these two bodies. They actually match in terms of the proportion of this increase in size and the distance. Hence, when we look at the sky, right? When you look at the sky, the moon seems to be of the same size as the sun. If at all you could see the sun, in the morning or so, you will see the size of the sun to be almost, pretty much the same size if one could measure it, right? That's because of our vision, and that's exactly the reason why when you place it like this, when the solar eclipse happens, uh, the moon, even though it's such so small, it's able to block that big of a sun, just leaving out a periphery outside. That's the astro phenomena of how the uh, lunar eclipse happens. Of course, the lunar eclipse always happens on a full moon, and the solar eclipse is going to always happen when it's amavasya or new moon, because it needs to line up, and it's exactly in the same plane. It's right behind, right there. Okay, so those are the reasons how the solar and the lunar eclipse happen. Now, like I said earlier, the solar and the lunar are two great sources of light sources, energy sources for us. So these two energy sources are important for us anytime it changes. For example, like when we move from one the pi, right, from Vrishabha into Mithuna in like 15 days, we are going to do what is called Tarpanam. Tarpanam is nothing but propitiating or remembering our forefathers for the birth that they gave us in this planet. The reason for the we value the human birth so much, so that the human the human life is so valued for us that we cherish it so much, that it's only because of our forefathers, it's only because of our grandfather, our great grandfather, that we are born here. Of course, the great grandmothers too, needless to say, though. But it's because of them that we are born, and we can be thankful enough because it's the light source that helped us transmigrate, and also it's the same light source that's helping them transmigrate from the earth onto higher levels of the world. And that's the reason why when we pray, it's always to the light source. And the disruption of this light source, even for a few minutes, either when it's a solar eclipse or a lunar eclipse, uh, we do what's called Tarpanam. And Tarpanam is paying respects to your ancestors. And I've covered this earlier in last week's talk also, that the sun and the moon take the place of your pitrus. They have pitrusthanam. When you do it, your most immediate ancestor, a father that's passed away, is represented by the moon, and the third generation of your great grandfather actually is represented by the sun. In between, there's the Ekadashi Rudras. The Rudras take the form of the your grandparent. So they form part of what is called a Pitru. So they are on Pitru Devatas. They take the place of Pitrus, and hence anytime a disruption of the light source happens, right, we pay respects to them by doing Tarpanam. People may have stories about, oh, eating away the light, Rahu came and ate away the light and all that. That's really not part of it. Yes, Rahu, the place, the meeting place, this plane where it meets is this. For example, when a lunar eclipse happens, it's Ketu that is at play. When the solar eclipse happens, it's Rahu that's at play. The head is right here, and the Rahu and the Ketu span that way. Okay. And of course, there's this Puranic story that they became a devata by consuming the amrita during Amrita Manthanam. They cheated, right? They got into the line and they were asuras. Yet I shouldn't say they. It was one person. It was one person that was a Swarbhanu who was a asura. He cheated, stood in the line, got his amritam, but again, Perumal is Srimanarayana is fair. He got his amritam. Anybody that gets amritam will get a life that's guaranteed forever. Hence, he also becomes a devata. When he asks for his position, he wants to basically be in the middle of the sun and the moon. So this phenomena is created by Rahu and the Ketu. The eclipses are phenomena that's created by Rahu and Ketu. Yet, the reason why we pray is not because Rahu eats away the sun, or the moon is eaten away by the earth, like by the shadow, and things of that sort. It's a nice story. The real reason is any form of disruption to the light sources that are so important to our lives in this earth. As human beings, we want to protect it, we want to recognize it, we want to be able to pay respects, and the only way we do it is by praying to our ancestors. So Pitru are the ones that are benefited by this during this time. So during lunar eclipse, for example, on this day, people in the central time zones, mountain time zones, and Pacific time zones are recommended to do Tarpanam right at sunrise. So right at sunrise is when the eclipse ends, and right after Sandhya Vandanam, and everybody's supposed to take a bath. You know, when I say bath, it's again everyone, everybody is supposed to have take head bath uh, because of this phenomena of a light being taken away from us for a period of time. Is why we do it. There are, of course, there are so many other restrictions in terms of eating and when to eat and not to see and things of that sort. We can get to the details of those, but all of those things also have reasons behind them. They are not super unscientific. They're not superstitious. They are a mark of respect, purely a great mark of respect for this wonderful phenomena of eclipse that's going to happen for us in the next couple years. But if you in a couple of days, rather. But if you imagine, right, the precise timing of when it starts, when it's going to end, calculating the plane of how it happens is something that we have been following for thousands and thousands of years, long before telescopes came in, long before satellites went out and figured out that this is going to happen. Grahanam is always been there in our culture. It goes back and it's timeless and immemorial, right? It's so long, but yet when you talk about the Western society, they'll talk about our superstitious beliefs around eclipses. Rather than trying to figure out how the heck did you guys even recognize and know that there's an eclipse. Eclipses to the Western culture is hardly 400 and 500 years old, not even that, right? 300 years old, maybe 350. We may have done a lot of research around it today, but if you probe deeper into our culture, into our Vedic system, it's right there. It shows there's so many things built around them. It's such a wonderful thing. We all need to respect that, and I think we really should take pride in how our Vedic system has studied these wonderful planets that are around us, and the astronomical bodies that are around us. With this, I conclude today's program. Thank you so much for watching. Jai Shiva Narayana.
Thank you very much, Sri Ram, really appreciate you and your daughter, for this presentation. We'll again try to meet again next week. Thank you.
Thank you.